The pink cake knife slipped from my hand and hit the floor. It made a sharp sound like a tiny bell. Everyone in my living room froze. My daughter-in-law, Claire, stood in front of the big welcome baby banner with both hands on her round belly. Her face was pale. The next second, the belly slid under her dress and dropped like a bag of potatoes onto the carpet. It wasn't a baby. It was a silicone bump. The room gasped as one. Neighbors, church ladies, my bingo friends, even the boy who came to set up balloons. I felt my heart jump hard against my ribs. I am 82 years old, but in that moment I felt every year. My son, Michael, stared at the fake belly like it had spoken. Claire didn't move. She only looked at me, her eyes wide, as if she had been hit by a wave. Then she whispered, "Please, Mom, don't." "Don't what?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, thin and high. "Don't see what is right in front of us?" That was when the doorbell rang, loud and fast, 3 times. Claire flinched. She grabbed my wrist with cold fingers. "If you open that door," she said, breathless, "everything you think you know will change." The whole room turned toward the hallway. The doorbell rang again. I took one step and then another, past the pile of gifts, past the pink and gold banner, past the laughter that had turned quiet as a grave. I put my hand on the knob and pulled it open. A young woman was on my porch, small and shaking, a hospital bracelet on her wrist. She held a tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. The baby made a soft sound, like a kitten. The girl looked up at me with wet eyes and said, "Mrs. Whitaker? Claire sent me." I stared at the baby. I stared at the girl. I stared at Claire. My mouth opened, but no words came out. That's when everything inside me began to shake. My name is Janet Whitaker. I am a retired school librarian from Oregon. I am blonde by birth, though now I keep it the color of corn to match the woman I have always been. My hands have sunspots from years of gardening and a small scar on my wrist from a long-ago fall on black ice. I live alone in a white house with navy shutters and a porch swing that creaks when it rains. I have 2 great loves, good books and my son, Michael. Michael is 42, big-shouldered, and gentle. He wears flannel like a uniform and still calls me Mom, even when his voice goes low, like he is 10 again asking for cocoa. He married Claire 3 years ago. She is 35, smart, tidy, and pretty in a very precise way. She likes her hair smooth, her nails pale pink, her spice jars labeled. When she and Michael told me they were working on a baby, I knitted a tiny sweater that same night. It was yellow to be safe. I kept it in a drawer because I am old, but I am also hopeful. The months passed. They brought me sonogram pictures that looked like moons and shadows. They sent me videos of heartbeat sounds, quick and happy. Claire's belly grew. She walked with one hand on her lower back and sighed at the stairs. We planned the shower at my house because I wanted to decorate like the storybooks I read to children for 40 years. Bears and bunnies, soft colors, little stars. I wondered sometimes if Claire's eyes looked too tired. I wondered if she was forcing smiles. But whenever I asked, she said she was fine, just busy, just hungry, just pregnant. I believed her. I wanted to. The day of the shower, the sky was a nice kind of gray. It made the pinks pop. People came with gifts and greetings. Someone set a plate of deviled eggs on my grandmother's table, and I thought how she would have liked that. I taped a paper cloud to the wall and then stood back to admire the welcome baby banner. Claire came in wearing a cream dress. She looked classic and fresh, like a picture in a magazine. Michael followed, carrying the biggest diaper cake I had ever seen. We played a game where everyone guessed the baby's weight. We laughed at a silly onesie that said, "Future Librarian." I gave Claire a little silver rattle I had polished myself. When she hugged me, her belly pressed into my ribs. It felt firm, real. And then the knife slipped. And then the belly dropped. And then the doorbell rang. And then a girl with a hospital bracelet showed up with a baby in a blue blanket and said Claire sent her. I stood in my hallway with 1,000 thoughts running into each other like people at a parade. The baby's eyelids were dark and thin. His tiny mouth made an O. I could smell him, warm, milky, new. The young woman trembled. She looked about 20, with light brown hair in a messy ponytail and freckles on her nose. She hugged the baby closer and took a step into my house because the wind was cold. "Who are you?" I finally asked. "Lena," she said. Her voice was small but clear. "Claire met me at the clinic. She told me I could trust her. She told me this baby would be safe with you." Behind me, the party was no longer a party. People whispered. Some slipped out. Michael moved toward us, his face tight. Claire stood very straight, as if a string held her up. Her makeup looked too perfect now, like a mask that would smudge if she touched it. "Claire," I said, turning to her. "Please tell me what is going on." She pressed her lips together. She looked at Michael instead of me. "Honey," she said softly. "I'm sorry." "For what?" Michael asked, chest heaving. "For this. For this circus. For not being brave sooner," she said. A low pain spread behind my eyes, the kind that comes before a headache. I wanted a chair, but I didn't sit. I thought of a day long ago when Michael broke our neighbor's window with a baseball. He was 8, and he cried so hard his freckles went pale. He said, "I tried to catch it, Mom." I had believed him because he was mine. I stood beside him as he apologized and earned the money to fix it. We had been a team. That memory pricked me now like a thorn. "Mom," Michael said, his voice cracking, "I swear I didn't know." I believed him. Still, the hurt rolled through me like thunder.
Claire took a breath that lifted her narrow shoulders. "I couldn't get pregnant," she said fast, like if she spoke quickly it would hurt less. "We've tried for years. The doctors. I was so ashamed. People kept asking. My sister kept posting baby pictures. And you, Janet, you kept knitting. I could feel your hope every time you looked at me. I didn't want to break it. So you lied," I said. The words tasted like dust. "To me. To Michael. To everyone." "I lied about being pregnant," she said. "Yes, I did. But I did not lie about the baby." Lena shifted the bundle in her arms. The baby yawned. A tiny fist popped out of the blanket, pink and perfect. I felt something crack open in my chest. A strange mixture of anger and awe, like standing in a storm and seeing the sun poke through. Claire's eyes shone, but she did not cry. I met Lena at the clinic. She was scared and alone. She wanted her baby to have a family. I told her about us. I told her about you, Janet. I told her how you made a yellow sweater before there was even a baby to wear it. I wanted to tell you all this the right way, the legal way, with the papers and the judge. But then the shower. Today I thought if I canceled you'd guess. I thought I could keep the act for a few more hours and then bring the truth to your door. "The fake belly," I said. She nodded. "It bought me time. Time to find the baby who needed us. Time to make Michael a father. Time to make you a great-grandmother." Michael rubbed his face with both hands. "Claire, this is crazy. We can't just take a baby like a pizza delivery. There are laws. There are steps." "There are," Claire said. "And I started them. I found an agency. We had our first interview last month. They asked for references. I used the ladies at church. Janet, Mrs. Peabody said she'd write one. But everything moves so slow." Lena didn't have slow. Her parents kicked her out. Her boyfriend left. She had the baby yesterday. She called me from the hospital this morning. I couldn't wait. Lena nodded yes, her eyes dropping to the baby. "I want him safe," she whispered. "I want him loved." The room behind me was breathing again. I heard the rustle of bags, the scrape of chairs, someone clearing their throat. I felt every gaze on my back. 100 little judgments. 100 little fears. I looked from the baby to my son. I looked from my son to Claire. I wanted to hold all three and also to push them all away, to make time rewind to the moment before the knife slipped and the belly fell. "Janet," Claire said, voice small now. "Please. I know I did wrong. But I swear to you, the baby is real. The love is real. I stepped forward and touched the edge of the blue blanket. The baby's cheek was so soft I thought my finger might go through it like a cloud. He smelled like new bread. What is his name? I asked. I didn't pick, Lena said. She bit her lip. I thought maybe you would. I opened my mouth to say something kind, to pick a name from a book I loved or a memory that still warmed me, when a hard knock shook the front door again. For loud hits, not gentle like a doorbell. A man's voice followed, deep and official. Police, it said. Open up. We need to speak with Claire Whitaker about a report of fraud and a missing infant. The baby wailed. Michael turned white. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. I stood between the baby and the door, my heart thudding like a drum in my ribs, and wondered which truth would break us first. The baby's cry echoed through my living room like a siren. Everyone in the house went still again. I pressed my palm lightly over the blue blanket, shushing the little one the way I used to soothe Michael when he was tiny. My bones were shaking, but I stood my ground. The police knocked harder. Mrs. Whitaker, the voice called. We have reason to believe there's a missing newborn inside this house. Please open the door. Claire's face drained of all color. Mom, please, don't let them take him, she whispered, her hands trembling. I turned on her so fast my old knees nearly gave out. Claire, what have you done? Did you really think you could fool everyone, including the law? Michael stepped forward, his flannel shirt wrinkled, his eyes wild. He looked so much like the boy I raised when he was scared of thunderstorms. Mom, I swear I didn't know about this. I didn't know about any of this. The young girl, Lena, clutched the baby tighter. Her freckles stood out against her pale face. Please don't let them take him to foster care, she said in a whisper, her voice breaking. I wanted him safe. I wanted him here. The pounding on the door shook the frame again. Ma'am, if you don't open this door, we'll be forced to enter. My mind spun. At 82, I thought I had seen everything, wars, recessions, deaths, and heartbreaks, but never did I think my own daughter-in-law would fake a pregnancy, only to bring a living, breathing baby into my home under the shadow of police suspicion. Michael, I said, my voice sharp now. Decide. Do I open this door or do I buy your wife more time? He ran his hand through his hair. I don't know. Mom, what if Claire goes to jail? What if they take the baby? What if? But Claire cut him off, her voice rising like a whip. What if we fight for him? What if this is the only chance we'll ever have to be a family? The words hit me like cold water. I had wanted a great-grandchild for so long. I knitted little hats no baby ever wore. I smiled at other women in church while they cradled their grandbabies, then went home to an empty rocking chair. My heart wanted to side with Claire. My head told me this was wrong, dangerous, even criminal. The police rattled the knob. Last warning. I lifted my chin, marched to the door, and opened it. 2 officers stood there. One was tall, with dark hair tucked under his cap. The other was shorter, a woman with sharp eyes. The tall one spoke first. Mrs. Whitaker? Yes. My voice didn't shake. We received a call from the hospital, he said. A young woman checked out with a newborn against medical advice. The child is considered at risk. He stepped inside before I could stop him. The woman officer followed, her gaze sweeping over the room. The decorations, the gifts, the banner still hanging like a cruel joke. Her eyes landed on Lena holding the baby. Miss Lena Graham? The officer asked. Lena's shoulders caved. Yes, she whispered. You took this child from the hospital less than 24 hours ago? Yes, but he's mine, Lena said quickly. I didn't steal him. I'm his mother. The room erupted with whispers. My church friends gasped. One woman muttered a prayer under her breath. The officer nodded. You're right. Legally you are his mother. But the hospital flagged this because you left before signing the final documents, and without a safe plan of care. Claire stepped forward, her cream dress swaying. She does have a safe plan. Me. This family. The officer's brow furrowed. And you are. Claire Whitaker, she said proudly, as if speaking her name could erase the truth. I'm her support system. I'm this baby's adoptive mother. The female officer's eyes narrowed. Adoptive mother? Do you have court papers? Documentation from an agency? Any legal proof? Claire faltered, her lips trembling. Not yet. But we started the process. That's not enough, the officer said flatly. The baby cried again, shrill and piercing. My hands itched to take him to comfort him, but I stayed still. Michael finally exploded. Enough. You all want to tear this family apart, but can't you see? This baby has a home here. My wife might have made mistakes, but her heart is in the right place. My mother. He turned to me with desperate eyes. Tell them, Mom. Tell them this baby belongs with us. I opened my mouth. But before I could speak, the tall officer raised his hand. Sir, until the courts decide, this baby belongs with his birth mother. No one else. Everyone froze again. Even the baby quieted, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Lena shifted the bundle in her arms, her face red and wet. She looked at me, straight into me, into all my years, my wrinkles, my hidden longings, and whispered, Mrs. Whitaker, please. Help me decide. Do I keep him or do I let him go? The officers waited. Michael's jaw clenched. Claire's fingers dug into her dress. Me. I felt like the whole weight of life, my past, my motherhood, my age, was pressing down on my shoulders. What I said next would change everything. Lena's question hung in the air like a bell that would not stop ringing. Do I keep him or do I let him go? The police waited for my answer as if I were a judge and this living room were a courtroom instead of a birthday-colored mess. My mouth was dry. We do the thing that keeps him safe right now, I said at last, hearing the old librarian firmness slip back into my throat. That means the hospital. He needs a doctor to check him and we need a social worker to make a plan the right way. The tall officer nodded once, relief flickering across his face. That's reasonable, ma'am. Claire choked on air. If we go back, they'll take him. They'll help him, I said sharper than I meant to. I touched Claire's arm, felt her bones quiver under the cream fabric. I'm angry, Claire. I am. But I'm not going to let fear make us foolish. The baby fussed again, thin stuttering cries. The sound flipped a switch in me I didn't know I still had. The last time I moved this fast, I was 40 and racing a 6th grader down the hall because he'd grabbed the fire alarm. Get his blanket, I said. Michael Keys. Officers, can we escort? Please. They agreed. The short officer spoke into her radio, calling ahead. In a blur we were moving. Gifts abandoned, cupcakes leaning like tired soldiers, a gold paper star tearing loose and skittering across the floor as if it wanted out too. On the porch, February air slapped our cheeks. My neighbors stood in clusters on their lawns, hungry as crows. Margot from across the street lifted her phone, always quick on a scandal. I stared her down so hard she lowered it halfway. Not enough, but halfway. We strapped the baby into the car seat, Lena's hands shaking so badly she missed the buckle twice. Here, I said softly, guiding the latch until it clicked. You breathe. I'll watch him. The officers' lights painted the street blue and red. We pulled out, sirens off but urgency humming like a string. I sat in the back beside the car seat, my palm hovering an inch above that small heaving chest because I needed to feel that rise and fall, needed the proof. Halfway down Maple, the cries thinned. Then they stopped. Michael, I said calm as I could though lightning shot through my veins, pull over. Now. He jerked to the curb. I unbuckled and lifted the baby like he was made of light. His face was dusky. His mouth made a fish's open and close. He wasn't drawing the air right. Old training clicked, long ago first aid seminars for teachers. A poster I'd made for a safety fair, the way my friend Ruth's granddaughter had choked on a grape at my kitchen table and we saved her with a back blow and a prayer. I set him on my forearm, head cradled in my hand and gave 5 gentle back slaps, counting out loud. Nothing. I rolled him to face me, 2 fingers to the center of his chest, tiny compressions. 1, 2, 3. I breathed against his nose and mouth, puffs not gusts, willing life to turn back around. Mom. Michael's voice cracked like thin ice. Quiet, I said steady. Let me. The baby coughed. A thin cry scratched out of him, then another, a bit stronger. Color seeped back into his lips, faint as dawn. I held him close and laughed a broken little laugh that surprised all of us, maybe even God. There you are, I whispered. There you are, little bean. The officers' faces had gone soft and human. The short one's eyes shone. Let's go, she said, voice low. ER's waiting. At the hospital, everything smelled like alcohol and hope and the kind of fear that's trying to be brave. A nurse swept us into a triage room and took the baby like she'd been expecting him all her life. A pediatrician with silver streaks in his hair listened to the small chest, his brow folding like paper. "He's a little tachypneic," he said to a young resident. "Let's get a pulse ox, glucose, bilirubin." He glanced at the car seat. "Good job bringing him in." A social worker appeared, her badge reading Alvarez. She had kind eyes and a spine you couldn't see but could feel. "I'm here for the baby and for everyone's decisions," she said, taking in Lena's tear tracks, Michael's white face, Claire's clenched fingers and me, an old woman with hospital fluorescence making my hair look like pale straw. "We'll talk in a family room." They guided us down a hall to a square space with soft chairs and a too-bright painting of tulips. Ms. Alvarez set a folder on the table. "First, I want to say, no one here is a monster. Some choices were wrong. Some were desperate. We will sort them with the court's help. Right now, the baby is under a 48-hour protective hold while we assess risk and safety. During that time, his mother," she nodded to Lena, "has medical decision-making. We'll explore temporary placement options." Claire flinched. "Placement? He belongs with us." Ms. Alvarez folded her hands. "Do you have a home study? A completed background check? An agency placement plan?" Claire's mouth opened then closed. "We started," she said. I paid a consultant to speed it up." I felt my stomach sink. "Paid?" Claire stared at the tulips. "People on the forums. They said you can hire someone to shepherd the process. She promised we'd be approved in 6 weeks. She said she had connections." Ms. Alvarez's expression didn't change, but something colder moved into the room. "What's her name?" "Cynthia," Claire whispered. "Cynthia Reed." Ms. Alvarez wrote it down. "If Ms. Reed is a licensed professional, we'll find her. If she's not, we'll find that out too." Lena hugged her own shoulders. "I didn't want money," she said quickly, eyes wide with shame. Claire, only bought me groceries and a bus pass. I didn't want him to live where people shouted. I wanted books. Gentle voices. A rocking chair. Books. Gentle voices. The rocking chair in my front room creaked in my mind like it had wheeled itself into this hospital. I swallowed. "It matters that you wanted love," I said to Lena. "It also matters that we keep him legal." Michael squeezed his eyes shut. "If we'd known, we would have done everything right." "You can still start now," Ms. Alvarez said. "But for the next 2 days we need a safe, approved plan. Kinship is sometimes an option, placing a child with a relative under supervision while we sort things out." My heart tripped over itself. "Relative," I repeated gently as if the word were a bird on a branch. "Yes," Ms. Alvarez said, looking at me like she'd already measured my spine. "If the court sees fit and if the home passes an emergency check." Claire's head snapped toward me. "Janet," she breathed. "Mom, please." I should have been angry, too angry to help. But motherhood is a strange church. You find yourself kneeling even when you wanted to slam the door. "If it is best for him," I said carefully, "I will open my door, and my cupboards, and my heart." A nurse poked her head in. "Ms. Alvarez? Doctor wants you to know baby SATs are better, but they're watching his bilirubin. He has some jaundice." "Thank you," Ms. Alvarez said, standing. "We'll be right there." The door hadn't swung shut before it opened again, this time with a gust of cold air and trouble. A tall man in a denim jacket strode in, followed by a woman in a pencil skirt carrying a leather portfolio. The man's jaw was tense. He had a tattoo that crawled up his neck like ivy. "Where's my son?" he demanded, scanning faces as if picking culprits. Lena went still the way a rabbit does when a hawk shadows the grass. "Trevor," she whispered, voice small as a thread. You came." The woman set the portfolio on the table and clicked it open. "I'm Attorney Kellerman," she said briskly. "Mr. Hayes is the putative father. He filed a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity this morning. We're seeking immediate custody pending adjudication." Ms. Alvarez, halfway out the door, turned back in with her posture straightening by inches. "We will verify any VAP with the registrar," she said coolly. "Until then, the baby remains under hospital protection and with his mother's medical authority." Trevor bristled. "I got rights. You have responsibilities," Ms. Alvarez returned, "and a process." Trevor's gaze landed on Claire. He jabbed a finger. You're the one who came sniffing around, asking questions, offering help to Lena like you was some kind of angel. Claire flinched. I said I'd support her. You said a whole lot of things. Michael stepped between them. You don't get to talk to my wife like that. Michael, I said softly. Let Ms. Alvarez handle it. He ground his teeth but moved back. The nurse reappeared, eyes worried. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the baby's numbers aren't holding. He's lethargic and the doctor wants to start phototherapy and run a type-in screen. Also, she looked at me of all people. Do any of you know your blood types? Oh, negative, I said automatically. Years ago I kept a little red card in my wallet, proud to be the universal donor at the church drives. Why? The nurse's mouth pulled tight. He may need a small transfusion if his levels rise. If the lab matches and you're willing. Yes, I said too fast, my hand already offering a vein. Take what you need. Trevor barked a laugh that had no humor in it. Lady, you're not family. I turned and stared him down the way I'd stared down 7th graders who thought they could steal candy in my stacks. I'm the woman who just kept that child breathing on Maple Street. I said, not loud, not soft. If my blood helps him again, you can sue me after. The room vibrated with nerves. Ms. Alvarez's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced, frowned, then swallowed. I need a moment, she murmured, stepping into the hall. In the glass of the door I could see us reflected. An old blonde woman with her chin up, a shaking girl with freckles, a son trying to be oak strong, a wife stitched together with guilt and hope, a father bristling like a storm fence, and a lawyer smelling of ink and deadlines. Somewhere down the hall, a tiny life lay under blue lights, swimming in a glow that looked like the bottom of a swimming pool. Ms. Alvarez came back in, face set like a seal on a letter you don't want to read. She closed the door gently and looked right at me. Mrs. Whitaker, she said, voice careful. A judge just reviewed an emergency petition. Given the circumstances, the safety plan, the immediate medical needs, and the conflicts between the adults, the court has authorized a temporary kinship placement for the next 72 hours. With you, pending a home check in the next 6. Claire clutched my arm. Michael exhaled like a tire going flat. Lena sagged, relief and grief crossing her face like sun and shadow. Trevor swore under his breath and the lawyer hissed his name, warning. But Ms. Alvarez wasn't done. There's one more condition, she added, eyes moving from me to the door of the nursery and back again. The hospital lab just called ahead. The baby's blood work shows a rare antigen that could complicate transfusion. They need O negative from a compatible source immediately. I raised my hand. That's me. The nurse shook her head. Not just O negative. A specific antigen match. The lab says an immediate family donor is best. Silence landed heavy. Immediate family. The words turned like a key inside a lock I hadn't known was in the room. Trevor smirked. Sounds like you need me, he said, swagger curling his lip. Ms. Alvarez's phone buzzed again. She checked it, blinked, then looked up slowly as if the hallway had whispered a secret she couldn't quite believe. Actually, she said, her voice a little unsteady for the first time all afternoon, the lab just compared Lena's sample and someone else's on file from this morning's intake. She turned to Claire. Mrs. Whitaker. Claire, did you have blood drawn here today? Claire's throat bobbed. Why yes. Earlier. They said it was routine for. She stopped, eyes round as plates. Ms. Alvarez inhaled. The antigen match is perfect. The fastest, safest donor we have is standing right here. We all followed her gaze to Claire. The nurse lifted a hand toward the door. If you're willing, she said. Claire pressed a palm to her chest as if checking whether her heart was still inside. She looked at me, then at the hallway where blue light seeped under a curtain, then back at me again. She began, voice barely a breath. And that was when the nursery alarm wailed, the kind of sound that splits a soul open, and a doctor's shout cut the air. We're losing perfusion. Get that blood now. Claire's eyes flooded. He stumbled toward the door. And the door swung inward first, and in the gap I saw a face I hadn't seen in 60 years. A face I'd only ever folded into a private prayer and a box of letters in my attic. Janet. The woman said, older now, silver-haired and unmistakable. I'm so sorry to barge in. I work here. I saw your name on the chart. It was my estranged sister, Ruth. Before I could speak, the nurse seized Claire's arm and the hallway swallowed them both, leaving me frozen between the past I'd buried and the baby who needed blood now. The sound of the nursery alarm still echoed in my ears, sharp and cutting, even though the hallway had gone eerily quiet after Claire and the nurse disappeared. For a moment I felt as though time had folded in half, trapping me between two worlds. The one where I was 82 standing in a hospital with a child's life in danger, and the one where I was 20, standing on the porch of my parents' farmhouse, screaming at Ruth until my throat bled. And now here she was, my sister. Her hair was silver, cut neatly at her shoulders. Her lab coat hung crisp and professional with a stethoscope draped around her neck. Her name tag read, Dr. Ruth Emerson, Neonatology. Janet, she said again, softer this time. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears yet, but with something that felt too close to them. After all these years, I didn't think we'd ever. Why are you here? My voice cracked. I didn't mean it to sound cruel, but every regret and every wound came spilling through those words. What are you doing? Why now? Before she could answer, Michael stood wide-eyed. Mom, you never told me you had a sister. I felt my cheeks heat. Because she left, I said bitterly. She left when we needed her most. She left me to bury our parents alone, to raise responsibility alone, to... Janet. Ruth's voice was calm, the voice of a doctor used to fragile rooms. This isn't the place. Not while that baby is fighting for every breath. Lena, who had been quiet as a shadow, suddenly sat up straighter. The baby, she whispered. Is he... Did Claire? As if on cue, the short officer returned. Her face gave nothing away, but her words did. They've started the transfusion. Your daughter-in-law is in the unit with the child. Looks stable. For now. Relief slammed through me so hard I nearly sank into the chair. My knuckles unclenched from the rosary of thoughts I had been muttering silently. But the storm wasn't over. Not by a long mile. Trevor shoved his chair back, the scrape loud. So now I'm supposed to just sit here while y'all pretend this circus makes sense? My son hooked up to tubes, strangers deciding his life. Stop calling him your son, Lena snapped suddenly, her voice fierce and shaking. You don't even know how to hold him. You didn't even stay when I needed you. Trevor froze, then sneered. I signed the papers. That makes me the father. Paper doesn't make you one, Lena spat, surprising even herself. Love does. And you don't have it. The lawyer at his side quickly touched his arm. Trevor, let's. But he yanked away. Nah. I ain't leaving this room until somebody explains why this old lady, he jabbed a finger at me, is suddenly running the show. Michael stepped in, his voice sharp. Because she's the only one keeping us from falling apart. For a moment, silence cracked open again. Even Ruth's face softened toward me. Then Ms. Alvarez returned, file in her hand, her voice carrying the weight of iron. Everyone listen. The judge's temporary order stands. The baby is under hospital protection, but custody decisions will rest on evidence, not emotions. Until the home check is complete, Mrs. Janet Whitaker is the designated kinship placement. Claire's name trembled in my throat, but I couldn't form it. She was still in the unit with the baby, giving what her blood could give. And me, the grandmother fooled by her lies, was now being told I would be the one to take that child home. Ruth stepped closer, her eyes on me. Janet, she said softly, you don't have to do this alone. Not this time. Let me help. The words caught in my chest. Decades of silence, of holidays missed, of letters never sent, of bitterness carried like a stone, and now she offered help. Why should I trust you? I whispered. Her voice cracked for the first time. Because I should have been there all along. And because that baby doesn't just need medicine. He needs family. You and me. I didn't know whether to laugh or weep. But before I could decide, the intercom crackled overhead, urgent and sharp. Code blue. Neonatal ICU. Code blue. Every head in the room snapped upward. Lena let out a strangled cry. Michael's fists clenched. Trevor cursed. Ruth grabbed her stethoscope, her eyes suddenly fire. That's him, she said, already moving for the door. And just like that, the past and present collided in the worst way possible. My estranged sister racing toward the baby my daughter-in-law had lied to bring into our lives. I stumbled after her, heart pounding. Because if Ruth couldn't save him this time, I would never forgive her again. The hallway broke into a sprint around me. Rubber soles slapping linoleum, a rolling cart banging a door, the red blink of a wall light stuttering like a heartbeat out of rhythm. I am 82 but I ran. My hand slid along the cold rail, my chest hot, my mind whispering the old prayers you scrape off the bottom of your soul when nothing else will do. Ruth flew ahead, white coat flaring. Clear the line. Bag him, she said as she vanished through the NICU doors. The alarm kept calling for help in that awful mechanical way, long shrill then silent, long shrill then silent, like a siren trying not to cry. A nurse blocked me with two open palms. Family has to wait out here. I am family, I said, and I didn't mean paperwork. I meant the kind that sees a little chest stutter on Maple Street and refuses to let it stop. Glass separated us. Inside, blue light washed the baby, making his cheeks look like the inside of a seashell. A doctor squeezed a tiny bag valve mask with 2 fingers. Another read off numbers. Ruth moved with that calm, fast grace I'd only ever seen in dancers and people who refused to let death have the easy ones. I pressed my forehead to the glass and whispered, "Breathe, little bean. Breathe." A hand touched my arm. "Michael. Mom, I'm here." "I know," I said, and I did. His presence steadied the air around me like a big tree blocking the wind. Behind him, Lena stood very still, her fingers locked together so tight the knuckles were white. She looked 12 again, a child with freckles and Sunday shoes, waiting to see if she'd be punished. I wanted to pull her against my chest and tell her something true that didn't hurt. I didn't know what that was. Seconds stretched long and mean. I watched the monitor line jitter, then lengthen, then jitter. A nurse adjusted the phototherapy lamp. Another taped a tiny 4 to a tiny hand. Ruth looked up, said something sharp I couldn't hear, and the team shifted as one. The alarm cut off, so suddenly the silence made me sway. The doctor lifted the mask. The baby's chest rose on its own, small then stronger. The line on the monitor found a steadier song. The door pushed open. Ruth stepped out, breath controlled, eyes bright. "He's back in a safe rhythm," she said, not triumphant, not casual. "He scared us. But he's a fighter." I sagged into Michael's side. "Thank you," I managed. I don't know if I was thanking her, the team, the baby, or God. Maybe all of them. Ruth's hand hovered near my shoulder, not quite touching. "He needs the transfusion to finish. And he needs quiet. Which means we need to keep the storm out of his room." She cut a glance past me. Trevor was pacing like a dog that had been caged too long, jaw working, eyes hot. Ms. Alvarez arrived, brisk as ever, a clipboard tucked to her chest like a shield. "Quick update," she said. "Judge's order is logged with the unit. We've scheduled the emergency home check at your house, Mrs. Whitaker, in 3 hours. If it passes, baby discharges to your kinship care when medically stable, with supervised visitation set by the court. No one takes him anywhere without an officer present until that time." 3 hours. My tidy house, frozen in party glitter and guilt. "I'll make tea," I blurted, the old habit landing like a reflex. "And I'll put clean sheets on the bassinet." Then I remembered, I didn't own a bassinet. I had a rocker and a heart. The rest would have to be borrowed from Heaven and Target. A nurse hustled up, cheeks flushed with effort. "Where's Claire?" I asked. "Is she?" "In recovery," the nurse said. "She finished the donation. She's a little shaky." "Shaky?" I said. My voice did that thin, dangerous thing. "She just gave blood to a baby who almost didn't make it. We're all a little shaky." The nurse softened. "She's asking for you." I let the others orbit. Lawyer quieting Trevor, Ms. Alvarez setting schedules, Lena staring through glass like a diver trying to memorize the underwater world before she has to surface. I followed the nurse down a side corridor painted with murals. Animals in shoes, balloons with faces. I thought of my library mural, the one with a giraffe reading The Velveteen Rabbit, and how children always patted its painted nose for luck. Claire lay on a narrow bed, pale but composed, hair loosened around her face in a way that made her look almost like a child playing dress-up in a hospital drama. She tried to smile when she saw me and failed. The failure hurt more than any lie she had ever told. "I'm sorry," she said, voice hoarse. "Everything, every step. I just kept thinking if I could carry the illusion long enough I could deliver the truth all at once," wrapped with a bow. Her hands trembled. I nearly wrapped it in a shroud. I sat, the plastic chair squeaking the way cheap chairs do when they have to hold too much. "You did a wrong thing out of a right hunger," I said. "That makes it human, not harmless." Tears slid from the corners of her eyes into her hairline. I meant to tell you before the shower. I did. I kept picturing your face when you saw the belly wasn't real and I panicked. I looked at her, the woman who had painted labels on spice jars and on lies, both neat enough to pass at a glance. Don't ask me to bless the lie, I said. But I saw you bleed for the truth just now. I won't ignore that. She sobbed once and swallowed it. I'd do it again. A knock, Ruth stepped in gentle. I need 5 minutes, she said to Claire, to ask about your lab work before you leave this unit. Claire blinked. By lab work? I just donated. Ruth nodded. We ran a standard panel before your donation, the usual safety checks. He glanced at me then back. The doctor voice lowered, softened. Claire, I need you to hear this with the calm you can find. We can confirm later with a quantitative test, but your HCG screen came back positive. Claire stared. Pi what? Your pregnancy hormone, Ruth said. It's low. It's early. But it's there. The room folded like paper. For a second I didn't breathe. Not because the news wasn't one of the things I'd prayed for in my quiet, unreasonable way, but because of the cruelty of its timing. Because she faked a belly and now a real life so tiny you need a number to see it might be fluttering inside. Claire's mouth opened, no sound. Her hands rose to her abdomen, a flat place, a lie freshly emptied, a truth newly possible. No, she whispered, half prayer, half warning to the universe not to be a comedian. No. I mean, yes. You're sure? We'll confirm with a blood draw, Ruth said. Very early pregnancies can be fragile. You've just donated blood, you're under stress and, her eyes flicked to me. You've been through hell. Claire turned her face to the wall then back to me. I don't deserve this, she said. I don't deserve any of it. Grace is not a paycheck, I said, and I was surprised at my own voice. It doesn't tally your hours. It just arrives. Ruth squeezed her shoulder. For now you rest. Hydrate. We'll repeat labs in a few hours. The door opened again. Ms. Alvarez leaned in, a new storm behind her eyes. We have a complication, she said. 2 actually. Of course we do, I said, because why not? 1, she ticked off with a finger. The consultant who took your money, Cynthia Reed, has a complaint history a yard long. We can't find an active license. The adoption form posts look predatory. I've notified the state AG's office. Do not contact her again. Claire closed her eyes, shame washing her pale. I'm so sorry. 2, Ms. Alvarez continued. Trevor's attorney filed an emergency motion claiming Lena's contact with you and Mrs. Whitaker constitutes coercion and that Trevor wants immediate placement with his mother, child's paternal grandmother, instead of kinship with you. Her eyes met mine. We'll fight it. But it means your home check has to be perfect. Trevor's mother lives 2 towns over. Their home has already been licensed for kinship once with a cousin. My house is clean, I said, perhaps a little too fiercely. It smells like lemon and cinnamon. The smoke detectors work. The outlets have covers from when Michael was small. I saved them. And the rocker. It'll help, she said. But there's one more layer. She looked at Ruth. Dr. Emerson, the lab flagged the baby's antigen profile again. It's rare, inherited on a pattern that could be clarifying. If Trevor isn't a carrier, it will be strong evidence he isn't the father. Ruth nodded. We'll draw him. If he refuses, the judge can compel it. Let him refuse, I muttered. Ms. Alvarez softened. Mrs. Whitaker, I know this is a lot. But if we can thread this needle, the baby goes home with you and we defend that placement while Lena makes a plan she can live with. Then give me the thread, I said. I still know how to sew. She smiled at that, an honest, tired smile, and slipped out. Claire watched me, eyes huge. If I really am pregnant, she whispered, what happens to him? Will people think I only want the baby I made, not the baby we found? I don't even know what my heart is supposed to do. Your heart is supposed to hold, I said. Like a basket. Like a porch in a storm. It will feel too small until it is not. I squeezed her fingers and went to find Michael. We had 3 hours to make a home passage test that measured more than dust. In the waiting area, I found him with Lena. He was showing her pictures on his phone. A goofy shot of him in high school with a mullet. Mom made me cut it, don't worry. A photo of my front porch in the snow, the rocking chair with a blue cushion. He was trying to make the air friendlier. Worked a little. I have news, I said, and then I said it. About Claire's labs, about the consultant, about Trevor's new play. Michael's face ran a whole race in 2 seconds. Shock, hope, anger, fear. She's pregnant, he said, voice breaking on the word like it was a thin branch. Then he started laughing and crying at once, hands over his face, shoulders shaking. I don't know how to feel. I don't know how. You feel in turns, I said. It's the only way through. Lena's eyes filled, not with jealousy but with a hurt that had nowhere polite to sit. I don't want to be the storm in someone else's sunshine, she said. But I also don't want to send my son to a house where love is divided. It won't be divided, I said. It will be multiplied. That is what love does when it's honest. Trevor barreled back in with his lawyer, hot with fresh fuel. They can't keep me out, he barked. You hear me? I want my test now. And my mom's on her way. She says that old house won't pass. Says the porch railings are loose. I stood. Tell your mother I own a screwdriver. He smirked. Tell her yourself. She'll be at your place before you are. For the first time that day, fear pricked me in a small, specific way, like a needle looking for a vein. I pictured Margot's phone, the neighborhood gossip thread, my address bouncing from thumb to thumb. If Trevor's mother reached my porch before child services, before me, before I could tuck away the banner that now looked like a lie, would she point and say unfit? Would she find a frayed rug, a wobbly leg, a sin? Ruth touched my elbow. I'm off shift in an hour, she said quietly. Let me come with you. I know what inspectors look for. I want to see your house. It's been too long. I stared at her, the girl who left, the woman who saved a child under a blue lamp. My throat ached with old things and new. Come, I said. A nurse sprinted by, ponytail snapping like a little flag. Mrs. Whitaker? She called over her shoulder. NICU wants you, just you, for a minute. My knees remembered maple floors and lullabies. Is he worse? I asked. The nurse shook her head. He's steady. The doctor just wants your signature for kinship contact. And, she hesitated. A name to put on his card. It helps the staff. A name. I'd been saving names in my heart for decades like pennies in a jar. Small, faithful clinks against the day a child would need one. I followed her down the hall, past the tulip painting, past the vending machine humming like a cheap hymn. Inside the NICU the blue light was softer now. A nurse tucked the blanket around his legs. His hand opened, closed, opened, sea anemone slow. Ruth stood at the foot of the isolette, chart in hand, eyes wet in a way I pretended not to see. He's holding, she said. The doctor pointed to the form. We can put baby boy if you need time. No, I said, and I surprised myself. He should have more than boy. He should have something to answer to. I thought of my father's hands, grease-stained from the shop, gentle on book pages. I thought of the tree in our yard where we hung a tire swing and the knot we used to climb. I thought of the maple on Maple Street. Evan, I said. Evan Whitaker, if Lena agrees. I looked to her. He swallowed. Evan, she repeated, and a small smile touched her cracked lips. It sounds like a hand you can hold. Then Evan, the doctor said, writing it down. I signed the form, my old hand steady. As the pen lifted, the NICU door swung open, and Ms. Alvarez stepped in with an officer I hadn't seen before. Her face had that look again, the one that said a new stone had just been added to the backpack we were all carrying. Mrs. Whitaker, she said, careful. We've just received a temporary protective order affecting your residence. She held out a paper I didn't take. Trevor's mother alleges your front steps failed a prior safety inspection and that you have a past adult protective services report for a fall you didn't disclose. Until we verify, the judge is suspending the home check on your address. The room tilted. The blue light swam. I heard my own voice from somewhere far away. That report was closed. I slipped on black ice in 2019, the neighbor called. They found nothing. And my steps were repaired the same week. Ms. Alvarez's mouth tightened. I believe you. But the court paused the placement. Another kinship site or licensed foster will be chosen tonight if we can't clear it in the next hour. Tonight. I whispered. Behind her, Claire appeared in the doorway, pale but upright, one hand on the frame. Janet, she began. And then she crumpled, sliding down the wall as if someone had cut the strings that held her. A nurse shouted. Ruth lunged. The officer moved aside as the crash cart banged the corner. Blood pressure's crashing, she's diaphoretic, someone called. Ruth's voice snapped taut. Get 4 access. Page OB stat. She's early pregnant and post-donation. Watch for hemorrhage. I stood between the baby with a new name and the woman who had lied her way into loving him, and for the second time that day I didn't know which life would break first, or what the law or God would ask me to choose when the clock struck the next minute. The floor of the hospital became a battlefield and Claire lay at the center of it. Her skin looked translucent as if someone had pulled the light right out of her veins. Nurses knelt on both sides, hands quick with tubing and tape. Ruth's voice rose above the chaos, crisp and urgent. She's hypotensive. Hang fluids wide bore now. Get OB in here. She's showing signs of early pregnancy complications. We may be dealing with a threatened loss. The word loss cut through me like a shard of glass. My knees trembled and Michael caught my elbow. His face was pale, his mouth opening and closing like he wanted to scream but had forgotten how. Mom, he rasped. She can't die. She just saved Evan. She just found out she's... His voice broke, his eyes filling with water that had no place to go. I squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt. We're not losing anyone today, I said. My voice was steadier than my heart. Across the room Trevor scoffed, though even his swagger had cracks now. Oh, so the liar gets the hero treatment? She fakes a pregnancy, then almost kills herself playing doctor, and now y'all act like she's a saint. I spun on him so fast my back cracked. Shut your mouth, Trevor Hayes, I snapped, my voice carrying the same steel I used when I silenced rowdy children in the library decades ago. Whatever she did wrong, she bled to keep your son's heart beating. If you can't honor that, then step outside. He opened his mouth to retort, but his lawyer yanked his sleeve. For once he listened. Ruth looked up from Claire's side, sweat shining on her forehead. We've stabilized her for the moment, but she needs monitoring in OB, Janet. Her eyes softened just for me. You can't follow this time. Stay with Evan. Let Michael go with her. Michael kissed Claire's clammy forehead and whispered something I couldn't hear before they wheeled her out. He followed close behind, his big shoulders shaking. The hallway quieted again, leaving me and Lena standing near the NICU door. The blue light still glowed behind the glass, steady, like a reminder that one small boy was fighting to stay. Lena clutched her arms. Mrs. Whitaker, what if Claire loses the baby? What if Evan gets placed with strangers? What if, her voice cracked. What if I made a mistake trusting her? I turned to her, really looking. Her freckles were blotchy from crying, her ponytail limp, her shoulders bent like twigs. She wasn't much older than the students I used to shoo out of the library when they lingered after hours. And yet she carried a weight heavier than most adults could stand. You didn't make a mistake, I said gently. You made a choice out of love. That's never a mistake, even if the world makes a mess of it afterward. He sniffled. I thought I was strong enough to do this. To hand him over. But now that I've seen him almost, she couldn't finish. You're stronger than you think, I said. But strength doesn't mean doing it alone. You have me. You even have Ruth. I surprised myself with that last part, but it was true. As if summoned, Ruth reappeared, wiping her hands on her coat. Her face was drawn but calmer. Claire's stable in OB. They're running laps. Janet, she'll need you later. But right now we need to focus on Evan. His bilirubin is climbing again. They may need a second transfusion. My stomach dropped. Another. Yes, she said. And we still need to resolve the antigen match. Trevor's being stubborn about his blood draw. Lena's voice sharpened. Of course he is. The short officer stepped forward. I can call the judge right now for a compelled test. If he refuses again, he'll be in contempt. Trevor barked a laugh from across the hall. Judge or not, you ain't poking me with no needle until my lawyer says so. His lawyer sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Trevor. But Ms. Alvarez cut through the noise with her calm steel. Then we'll move forward without him. Mrs. Whitaker, are you still willing to donate again if the lab clears it? Yes, I said without hesitation. My voice didn't even shake. Ruth looked at me, her eyes softer than I'd seen in 60 years. Janet, are you sure? You're not young. Donating twice in a day. I'm sure, I said. That boy is breathing because of me once already. I'll do it again if I must. For the first time since she appeared, Ruth smiled. Small, tired, but real. You haven't changed. No, I said. And maybe you haven't either. Before she could answer, the NICU doors opened. A nurse leaned out, her expression urgent. We need the blood now. The baby's levels are dropping fast. The officer looked at Trevor. Last chance. He folded his arms, scowling. Not happening. I stepped forward, rolling up my sleeve. Then take it from me. The nurse nodded and ushered me inside. As they prepped my arm, I glanced through the glass one last time. Evan lay under the glow, his tiny chest rising and falling like the flutter of a moth's wings. For a moment, his fist twitched, curling toward the light as if he were reaching for something. Someone. And I knew he was reaching for me. The needle slid in. My blood filled the bag, dark and steady. But even as I gave what I could, a thought gnawed at me, sharp and merciless. What if the truth about his parentage, about Claire's new pregnancy, about Trevor's refusal, about the lies and the law, tore him away from me before I ever got to rock him in my chair at home? And worse, what if the truth Ruth carried, the one she hadn't spoken yet, was about more than medicine? Because when our eyes met across the NICU, her gaze wasn't just professional. It was haunted. Like she knew something about Evan. And about me. And it was the kind of truth that could split a family wide open. The bag of my blood swayed gently on its hook, crimson and steady, as if it carried more than oxygen. It carried all the years I thought I was done giving. My hand tingled where the needle sat, but I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes on Evan. His chest rose, fell, rose again under that blue glow. Each breath was a promise I prayed wouldn't be broken. Ruth stood by the incubator, scribbling notes. She hadn't looked at me since the transfusion started, but her posture betrayed her. Stiff shoulders, a throat that worked like she was swallowing stones. I knew her tells. 60 years of silence hadn't erased the way her guilt looked. Finally, I couldn't keep it in. You know something, I said, my voice low but sharp enough to cut through the hum of machines. Her pen stilled. Janet, not now. Yes, now, I pressed. I see it in your eyes. What is it? She hesitated, then closed the chart, clutching it like a shield. The antigen profile. It's rare. Incredibly rare. I saw it once before years ago. In a family line I treated. She paused, then her eyes met mine, steady, deliberate. Ours. The room tilted. Ours. Yes. Her voice broke. That marker, the one Evan carries, it's the same antigen I have. The same one you have. Janet, he isn't Trevor's. He's blood to us. My breath snagged. My pulse thundered in my ears. What are you saying? That Lena. Lena, who'd been silent in the corner, stepped forward, face blotchy with shock. Wait, what do you mean yours? He's my baby. I carried him. Ruth raised a hand, calm but firm. No one's disputing that. But biology tells us the father carries this antigen too. Trevor doesn't have it. The lab confirmed. Which means, she looked at Lena. Whoever fathered your child, it wasn't Trevor. It was someone with the Whitaker bloodline. The air froze solid. My heart pounded in my ribs like fists on a locked door. Michael stepped back from the doorway, pale, his flannel collar twitching where his throat moved. Wait. Are you saying? He couldn't finish. Lena's eyes darted, panicked. No. No, it can't be. Trevor swore loudly, his voice hot with fury. You lying. He jabbed a finger at Lena. You said he was mine. You dragged me into this circus, made me sign papers, made me look like a fool. Lena burst into sobs. I didn't know. I thought he was yours, Trevor. I swear I thought. Then who? I whispered. My voice was barely there. Who else could it be? The NICU lights hummed, the machines beeped, Evan's small breaths whistled. But all I heard was Ruth's words echoing, ours. Ours. It meant the father was connected to me. To us. To Whitaker blood. And in that second, every head turned toward Michael. No, he said, his face red, his hands up like he was warding off fire. No. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. I didn't. He looked at me, at Lena, at the floor. His whole body shook. Mom, I didn't. But the room's silence pressed in, thick and accusing. Ruth's eyes narrowed, not in blame but in a kind of calculation. Michael will run your test too. The truth will be clear soon enough. Michael's chest heaved. He looked cornered, wounded, furious. I didn't touch her. I didn't. Mom, you have to believe me. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, the NICU alarm went off again, sharp and jarring. Nurses rushed past, calling for suction for oxygen. Evan's monitor beeped in a frantic stutter. The doctor shouted, "We're losing stability." And just like that, the accusations scattered. The only thing that mattered was the child under that blue light fighting again. I staggered to the glass, pressing my palm against it. "Don't you leave us, Evan," I whispered. "Not now. Not when everything is breaking open." Behind me, voices rose. Trevor swearing, Lena sobbing, Michael insisting, Ruth demanding blood draws. And I realized with a clarity that chilled me. Evan's fight wasn't just for his life. It was for the truth that could tear us all apart. The NICU glowed in sharp, cold light as the team worked over Evan's tiny body. Beeps overlapped, a rhythm of urgency. I stood rooted to the glass, one hand pressed flat as if my touch could seep through, steadying him. Every time the monitor dipped, it pulled my heart with it. Inside, Ruth slipped on gloves and moved with precision. Her face was calm, but I knew her well enough to see the storm in her jaw, the way she bit the inside of her cheek when fear threatened her control. "Prepare a second transfusion," she told the nurse. "Double-check cross-match. And page hematology, stat." The nurse sprinted off. Behind me, the hallway seethed with voices. Trevor was red-faced, pacing like a bullpen too long. Lena sobbed into her sleeve, her whole body curling inward. Michael stood against the wall, arms folded tight across his chest, his eyes not leaving me. He looked like a boy again. Back when he broke a neighbor's window and begged me to believe his story. The short officer stepped forward, voice firm. "We need calm. No. Everyone quiet or I'll clear the hall." That silenced them for a moment. The only sound left was the hum of the machines and the shallow echo of my own breath. Then Ruth's voice came, muffled through the glass but clear in tone. "We need the next donor." The door opened and a nurse pointed at Michael. "We need your blood type confirmed." Stat. Michael's eyes widened. He shook his head. "I already told you I didn't." "It's not about guilt," the nurse snapped. "It's about saving a child's life." Michael's throat bobbed. He looked at me, desperate. "Mom, if I do this, they'll think it proves." "Michael," I said, my voice firm even though my insides shook. "Do it. For Evan. Let the truth come if it must, but right now, do it for him." He shut his eyes, nodded and followed the nurse. Trevor snorted. "How convenient. I bet the test comes back saying he's daddy of the year." "Enough," I hissed. My voice was old, thin, but it cut. "A child is fighting for his life and all you can think of is your pride. Shame on you." Trevor opened his mouth to spit fire, but his lawyer grabbed his arm and shook her head. For once he went quiet, though his glare could have set the wall alight. Minutes dragged. Every second was a century. I prayed with each one, whispered names I hadn't spoken in years. My mother, my father, the God I sometimes doubted but still reached for in the dark. Then Ruth came out, gloves off, mask lowered. Her eyes were fierce and wet all at once. "The transfusion worked," she said. "He's stable again for now." Relief broke over me like a wave. I pressed my hand to my chest and let out a sob I didn't know I was holding. But Ruth wasn't finished. She held a paper in her hand, the edges trembling. "The labs just came back. Michael's antigen pattern," she swallowed, glanced at me, then at him. "It's not a match." Lena gasped. "Then he's not." "No," Ruth said. Her voice wavered, but she forced it steady. "Michael isn't the father." Trevor smirked like a man winning a bet. "Then it's me after all." Ruth turned to him, her eyes like steel. "No. You're not either." The hallway froze. "What?" Trevor barked. "That's impossible." She told me. "The markers don't lie," Ruth said. "You don't carry the antigen. Neither does Michael." She took a shaky breath. "Which means the father is someone else entirely. Someone with Whittaker blood." My skin went cold. My mind spun. Whittaker blood. But not Michael. I whispered, barely able to form the words. "Then who?" Ruth's gaze landed on me. She stepped closer, her voice low, almost breaking. "Janet, do you remember that summer? The one before I left." My stomach dropped. My knees trembled. That summer, 60 years ago, the one we never spoke of. The one that split us apart. "What are you saying, Ruth?" I whispered. Her hand shook as she pressed the paper into mine. I'm saying this child isn't just your grandson, Janet, by blood. He may be your son's son's son. The paper fluttered in my grip, unread because my vision blurred. And the truth I had buried with decades of silence clawed its way back into the light. The hallway spun, not with movement but with memory. Ruth's words were still hanging in the air, heavy as iron chains. This child isn't just your grandson. By blood, he may be your son's son's son. I gripped the paper she had pressed into my hands. The letters blurred, my eyes wet, but the words were clear enough. Antigen match. Whitaker lineage. Excluded. Michael Whitaker. Excluded. Trevor Hayes. Explain, I whispered, though part of me already knew. Ruth's face, worn and silvered, softened into the girl I once knew. The girl who had followed me through cornfields, who had whispered secrets in the attic, who had betrayed me with silence when the world turned cruel. That summer, she said, voice low but steady, before I left for medical school, before everything broke, I made a mistake. A selfish, reckless mistake. I was lonely, angry, and I crossed a line. My stomach twisted. What line? Her eyes met mine, and in them I saw the truth before her lips moved. With Robert. My husband. The ground tilted beneath me. The fluorescent light seemed to hum louder, crueler. Robert. My voice cracked into pieces. Ruth's tears fell freely now. It was once. Only once. He was drunk and I was furious at you both for everything. I left right after because I couldn't live with what I'd done. I thought I'd buried it forever. She looked toward the NICU. But blood doesn't lie, Janet. This antigen, it's Robert's line. Which means the father of Lena's baby is Robert's grandson, through someone else we haven't accounted for. My knees nearly buckled. Michael caught me, his voice sharp. Mom, what's happening? What is she saying? I pushed him back, my chest heaving. Not here, I hissed. Not now. But Trevor wasn't about to let the silence hold. He barked a bitter laugh. So the big fancy family ain't so perfect after all. Your golden Robert was spreading seeds in secret, huh? And now it's sprouting in the strangest soil. Shut your mouth. Michael roared, fists clenched. The officer stepped between them. Enough. This is a hospital, not a circus. Ruth reached for me, but I pulled back. My hands trembled as I pressed them flat against my skirt, trying to keep myself from shattering. You should have told me, I whispered. 60 years ago, you should have told me. I thought silence would protect you, Ruth said softly. But silence is poison. And now it's spilled into another generation. Inside the NICU, Evan stirred. His cry pierced through the glass, thin but fierce, like a bell demanding attention. It snapped us all back to what mattered. Lena pressed her hands to the window, tears streaming. I don't care whose blood runs in him. He's mine. I carried him. I love him. And I won't let anyone take him from me. I stepped beside her, staring at the tiny boy under the glow. You're right, I said, my voice stronger now. The truth of blood may haunt us, but love is the only truth that will save us. We can't undo the past, Lena. But we can choose the future. Ms. Alvarez, who had been silent through the storm, finally spoke. Her voice was firm, unwavering. The court will decide custody in the coming days. But today, this moment, we decide how to stand together. You want to tear each other apart, fine. Do it in front of a judge. But if you want this baby to survive, you put aside pride, lies, and secrets, and you show him unity. The hallway went still. Trevor cursed under his breath but said nothing more. Michael rubbed his face, still stunned but silent. Claire, pale and fragile, appeared again in the doorway, a nurse steadying her arm. Her eyes were red but resolute. I don't know what's true anymore, she whispered. But I know this, I nearly died for him. And I would again. Evan isn't just blood. He's a second chance. I looked at her, then at Michael, then at Ruth. And finally, at the baby who had pulled all our sins into the light just by being born. My voice shook, but it carried. Then let us make a vow. Whatever the court says, whatever the blood says, we fight for him. Not as enemies. As family. A broken, messy, tangled family, but family all the same. Because if we don't, Evan will grow up with the weight of our shame. And I won't let that happen. Silence followed, heavy but alive. Then Ruth nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. Together, she said. Claire whispered, together. Even Michael muttered, together, though doubt shadowed his eyes. And Lena, sweet trembling Lena, pressed her forehead to the glass and whispered, always. Inside, Evan's cry softened as if he had heard us. His chest rose and fell steady now like he had chosen to believe. I pressed my palm against the glass, my reflection overlapping with his tiny body. Rest, little bean, I whispered. Your family is here. And we will never leave you again. The machines hummed. The blue light glowed. And though the future was uncertain, one truth had finally risen. We were bound, not by lies, not by secrets, not even by blood, but by the fragile, ferocious promise to protect him. And that, I knew, was the only truth that mattered.